Hello, everybody. Welcome. My name is Joanne Weatherby. We're coming to you today from Rick Hansen Secondary School, which is found near Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. I am a teacher librarian. I also teach science, and this year I'll be teaching Anatomy and Physiology 12. My pronouns are she, her, hers.
Okay. All right, Nina. Hi, I'm also working at Hansen. I'm gonna turn off your volume. Yeah. My name is Haley Harasemow. I am a digital arts and online learning support teacher. My pronouns are she, her, and I will also be doing pretty much the same thing as last year, but adding more digital arts things to our repertoire.
Last but not least, my name is Lukis Kind. I also surprisingly work at Hansen. I, though, teach math and science. I am also the SOGI School Representative at our school, which focuses on sexual orientation and gender identity learning for students. I pass you back to Haley. She will start us off here, and we will get underway.
All right, so within our presentation, we're going to go over our school AI resource. So this is an online resource that we've found that we want to look at specifically using our historical figure chatbots to gain perspective, uncover bias, and foster some innovation, because here at Hansen, we are very much a PBL and inquiry school. So we want to try and find resources that are going to kind of push our assessment practices, our interaction practices, our engagement, and the use of AI is starting to become a brand new and a great field to continue into. So the thing I'm going to go over is actually the platform itself, the levels of access that you have, the pathway introductions, a little bit of the resources that we have, and then I'll also give you a tiny little bit of a guided experience, but I'm also going to have the opportunity later to have you participate in that experience as well. So if you'd like to, you can follow along in your own browser as well. You can have, you can possibly start the sign up process if you really like to, or you can just simply watch. But if you would like to, type in School AI into your address bar, and you can join me in a little second. So I'm going to pop up and bring the other window into frame, and then we'll get started with the guided experience. And this is where we want to go. Screen, wonderful, and share. Okay, so when you first get into School AI resource, all you need to do is go into that lovely little address bar and type in School AI. So for anyone who doesn't want to sign up for a membership, you have the ability just to hit Explore Spaces and use a preview setting of the chatbots or any of the resources that are available for the non-member. However, you only have individual access and you do not have monitoring access if you want to share a space with your students. However, if you do want to sign in or sign up for it, you can also do it as a free member. And so when I did this, I sign in, and the first thing that I come to is my launch pad. And this is kind of like your home screen or your home base. And from there, you have all these different resources. I do have a document that we've created that we're going to share a little bit later, that I've put all the steps in for the account and launching the space, as well as kind of some of the qualities of different membership pieces. But for today, we're going to go in and we're going to find a space that's available to us, because this resource right now has so many different things available already, that you can use what is available. Okay, so I'm going to go into find a space when it clicks properly. Yes, no. So discover, and why is it not going to do it for me? Oh yeah. Okay, let's try and figure this out. There we go. Spaces. And then if we scroll all the way down, you have tons of different resources all the way down. But for our purposes today, we want to go all the way down into our historic figure chatbot. And the screen that it's going to come to is what you can create with your students if you sign up. So you can create a space through this, but I'm just going to give you a little bit of a preview to start. And for our purposes today, we're actually going to interact and ask some questions and get to know a little bit more about Marsha P. Johnson. So if you don't know who that is, this is a great experience for you guys to have a little bit of information and figure it out from there. Okay, so if you'd like to, once you want to create a space for yourself, I do have to say that there is a specificity with the historic figure, is the fact that this experience is intended for historic figures, significant historic individuals that are already deceased. So it'd be really hard to have a conversation with, let's say, Neil deGrasse Tyson, because he's still living, and may or may not have, even though he's significant within our history, there may not be as many resources on a living person as there would be on a deceased person. But if you do have any specifications on the instructions, let's say you have a specific activity that you want to do, or you want to tailor the experience or the space to your class, let's say their learning needs or their language level, you can do those in these options here. However, for today, we're just going to go and start in with the preview. So right here, we should be able to start a conversation with Marsha P. Johnson. So the first couple questions here, it's really interesting how they are bringing in information right away, as well as asking of the attendee to like offer some information about themselves. So if I had no idea, if I'm getting into this with little access, it brings me into the conversation very easily. So of course, my first conversation or my first question would be, well, I do know what. No, no, no. All right, first question in. So I've asked what the movement was, what the Stonewall Uprising was, gives me a little bit more information, and it's also bringing a question into me as well. All right, so I'm going to do a little bit, I'm going to go a little bit forward as well. And I'm going to ask, well, how could modern activists possibly learn from our actions? Wow, let's type properly today. Okay. And sometimes you don't need to like fully answer the questions that they're asking of you, but they still give some great feedback, and it's a great conversation starter as well. Okay, so once they have answered, then I'm going to actually pass it over to our next presenter. So hopefully the preview is going to give a little bit more for us, but sometimes it can take some time to bring in lots of different information. They're using open AI sourcing to be able to bring in a lot of information. So sometimes it needs time to calculate an answer or anything like that as well. And it's taking forever, and that's okay.
I can start while it's still loading, so why don't we do that?
Perfect, here it is. All right, so it's going to give you a lot of information, really very interesting on how it brings in a lot of information all together at once. Okay, so I'm going to switch screens and go back to our PowerPoint. And
Okay, it's my turn. So what my part is going to be is about how do we then, as librarians and teachers and students, how do we use these AI generated questions then? So we can't get away from it completely. We know it's out there. We know students are going to use it. So really, we want to guide the learners to use it in a really beneficial way, as opposed to using it for things that maybe we don't necessarily want them to use it for. So it's the curiosity factor and the deeper learning, I think, is what AI can be used for. So for curiosity, I think learners are just naturally curious. And for me, when I found this school AI site and used it for the first time, I was very curious. And I spent hours on it chatting with different people. Using AI platforms such as School AI can tap into that curiosity, and it gives them the time and that space to be able to explore and ask questions that they may not ask questions maybe in the classroom. Maybe they're too shy. Maybe their language barrier is there. And so this would be a really great opportunity for them to have that time and space to do that. For the deeper learning, they actually engage with this information. They could personalize it as well and internalize it and see how it affects them. So you see the questions that it asked afterwards, chatting with that historical figure. They make you think about other things afterwards. They pose questions to you, so you can internalize it and personalize it. It gives you time then to synthesize that information, think critically about that information, especially those questions that they pose to you, and it can prepare for just different opportunities, and it could be help with challenges, I think, in the future. So the first thing that I thought about when I was looking at this is then how do we use these AI generated questions, right? We want students and teachers to use it as a tool, not as a crutch. So if you read some of these pieces, it's like, where do you stand with AI and how you use AI, and how do you want your students to use it? So that there's 3 questions at the bottom. One says at the very, very bottom, it says, which of these would you consider cheating? The middle question says, which of these is relevant to our students' future? And the third one then is, which of these would you use in your work as an adult? So like for me as a librarian or as a school teacher, how am I using these? So if you look at the very top ones, those are really highly generated ones, AI generated. So it's students just plug in the prompt to AI, copy the response, and submit it to the teacher. So that's one of those things where, you know, that response thing that we just did with Haley, they just cut and pasted it and just handed it in, right? So there really wasn't any thought process too much with the student other than generating questions. The second one down says AI created response, students read, edited, adjusted, and then submitted. So there was more student information in there, but really was all AI generated, and the student only was asking the questions. The third one says students created multiple AI responses, used the best parts and then edited them. Okay. The next one says students wrote all the main ideas. The AI generated a draft and then offered feedback for improvement. So this is getting a little bit better, especially for me as a teacher. Using AI to generate different things, maybe to help edit, maybe to help improve or give feedback. I think that might be a really interesting way of introducing assignments. Students consulting the internet or AI for ideas, and then writing and submitting an assignment. This is more what we're going to be showing and promoting today on how you can use these AI ideas that Haley showed. How can we use those and put them into an assignment? So I'm kind of at that point there. And the last one says student wrote the assignment with the content without consulting internet or AI. And I think that's really restrictive. And that deeper learning can't happen unless you ask more questions. So there's this bias, there's an AI bias. So anything that you read is always going to have from a different perspective, and we really have to be careful on bias. So what I think what needs to be done is you always have to think about bias within the AI itself, within the person who's asking the questions, and within the resources that this AI is pulling from. I think all those things need to be thought of. And I think preloading students with a lesson on how to understand what bias is and different perspectives, and how you can look for accuracy and reliability of resources, and looking for what date was it actually published. So using these AI pieces sometimes don't give you those resources that they used. So I think using AI in our example might be a really good way of promoting questioning, promoting curiosity, thinking about how it can be used in their own lives, to propel them to do and have great positive actions and movement, and applying it to themselves and to their community and into their classroom.
All right. So I'm going to run through this relatively briefly as we're running a little low on time. What can we do with this AI? What can we do with these chatbots? So some of the first things we wanted to look at were stuff like building empathy, building a connection to who you're learning about, why you're learning about it, and to help shape who you are in connections to it. So we wanted to build empathy through being present, listening, feeling, understanding, and communicating, which heavily leans into our design process of how we can empathize and build things from it to help create change or facilitate change within our community, to country even. So we wanted to make sure that they were thinking about reflection and introspection, giving them opportunities for time and space to ask personal or difficult questions without any judgment from a teacher, any judgment from their peers. It's all in the chatbot. It's one-on-one. Well, the teacher might be able to look through and see what they did. It's part of the whole thing is to ask those personal questions. It allows them to apply their learning to their own past. How do they feel about these things? How can they shape their own future knowing these new pieces of information? And it gives the students voice and choice to choose who they're looking for, what kind of things are personal in their life that they'd like to change. And it all boils down into that being able to reflect on yourself and grow as a human being. And so we wanted to look at some example projects or assignments as well that we could do. So we asked the big overarching question of how can we use the past to help direct this positive change in the present and future? So some formative checks we could have would be stuff like talking with the chat bot, asking questions, and just submitting that there to see if they've had that proper discussion. We could have students write a reflective piece on how this affects the present and how those changes have occurred at a municipal, state, provincial, federal level. Take what they know about the small and extrapolate it to the big, or vice versa. And then we have some summative checks that we could do. Write a letter to your congressperson, your member of parliament, your mayor. Try and elicit change through what you've learned, developed, tested, and see if it can actually elicit change in that community. Creating an action plan for the school or community to elicit those changes regarding social concerns of your choice. For an example might be like bathroom choices, dress code. We've talked about just decorations around the school and how it looks. Any type of change that the student feels is important can grow to be something bigger in the end. So it all comes back to this design process of using it, creating that empathy through the AI and the chatbot, defining what you want to do, ideating and creating, prototyping and building it out, and then testing and repeating and see if it works, if it doesn't work, but getting that chance to do so in a safe manner. Yep. So we have all of our resources posted here for you. We also have a shared folder that is linked in the chat for you as well. So if you'd like to reread through anything that we talked about or take a look at some of the URLs that we've been using, as well as some of the books that we referenced in our looks, such as the Stonewall Riots and the Book of Pride, as well as the AI generated classroom here. They're all great resources. Feel free to pick any of them up. Tell us about it. Email us if you have any bigger questions. Our email provided?
We can put it in the chat.
We can put it in the chat here for you. Thank you very much.
Do the space?
Well, yeah, how about if you launch the space and then we can ask. Sorry, yeah, we're gonna launch a space right now, so then you can join, so you can see what it looks like as a teacher. Because it really acts as like Google Classroom, where you can, it gives you a code, it brings everybody together, and then you can monitor all the chats that all the students are doing. If you don't like the chats that they're doing, you can delete it. You can respond to them at the same time. You could delete their presence. If you don't want them there, they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Like, we know that this happens, right? But it also saves. So then they can use those chat pieces if you want to do those reflections like Lukis was saying. So if you have any questions, please turn on your mic and ask questions, or if you feel better with chatting in asking questions in the chat, please do so now.
Kim said it wouldn't let her access the resource.
Oh, weird. Okay. Okay. How about I launch a space first, and then we will figure out our resource drive for some reason. It may also have an access issue just because of the outside emails, but that's what happens sometimes. All right. So once you have signed up, the idea is that you have access to being able to launch and create a space yourself. So you can either do finding a space and finding that person and finding that historical chatbot if you like, or you can create a space directly from scratch if you'd like as well. But for our purposes, let's just go in and find that space like we did before. And I'm actually going to launch a space and not just do a preview this time. So we'll go back down to our historic chatbot. And do we want to do the same one?
Yeah, let's do it.
Sure. And I'm not going to do any other options. However, instead of choosing the start preview, I'm going to do launch. And this is the code so this is what pops up. You can either use, if you're using Google Classroom, or if you want to use a QR code, that's totally fine. But here is your code. So if you would like to join us, please, that'd be awesome. And Lukis, if you don't mind putting that link into the chat. Actually, you know what? I can do that.
Sorry, I'm working on the.
You're good.
I'm working on the shared folder.
I put it in the chat. There we are. Okay. So once you have opened your space and your link there, if you would like to, this is the screen that you would get to. So your space looks like you have, yeah, see, so we have a couple participants, and then you can invite more people up here. You can pause a space. Let's say if you want to ask an overall question to the class, or you can do that. And once you have paused it and you want to resume, you just hit resume. But yeah, so this is kind of what it looks like. And then once once this activity that you have launched and that space has launched and you want to finish it, all you need to do is kind of like end the session. And what's nice is that some of the insights will appear over here and engage, and it's really quite cool. So from here, I can actually go in and view a specific person's chat. So if they want to get started, you can get them to rejoin, you can remove them, you can pause someone specifically. And then once you want to go back in, then you can go see other people. And what's nice is that there's like whoever has, once the participant has written something, it actually shows right here underneath the names, which is really quite interesting. So there's lots of different ways to interact and get your students kind of in all of these different ideas. And what's really kind of cool is that there's a positive, there's a neutral, there's almost like headlines of what is going on in each of the different chats. Okay. Lukis, did you get the resource?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm trying some things.
No problem. We got some time to figure it out. If you have any questions, let me know. Hmm. Wonderful.
People don't mind if you want, you can show everybody, like, so you can see, did you show them that different people? You
Oh,
can see
yeah,
different-
sorry, I'll go into
Yeah.
yours. All right, so I'm just gonna show Joanne's chat on the side here. So what's nice from the teacher view compared to the participant view is that you can still keep an eye on your overall class participation as well as see what certain people are chatting about in their own specific things. Have trouble?
I believe access is back.
Okay, so hopefully we have access back to that document. Okay. I'm gonna say 1 minute. Okay. So in order for our session to kind of close with a nice enough time, I'm gonna say, let's give us 1 minute left with a little bit of play. If you have any questions, please let me know. Let's put any questions that you have in the chat. And if you do have anything specific to the technology piece of it, the platform piece of it, that is something that I would be very happy to answer right now since I've done a major deep dive into this resource. Okay, so I'm going to officially end our launch space. I'll show you very quickly what it looks like. So the ending the session. And then as soon as the screen pops up, what's really nice is that it has a little summary of what everyone kind of talked about. So on the side, there's a lot of empathy and curiosity. These are the pieces that will come up. Activism potential, historical knowledge, personal traits, certain kind of came out. So like students' personal experiences, such as defending family members and all these different things. Like that's really cool that it's actually pulling a lot from each of your own chats, which is really quite nice to see and have that. So anyway, so this is kind of what you would do with launching a space, and hopefully this resource will help you a little. And of course, there are, how does this, oh, I'm not entirely sure. There are other historical chatbots on here. So like there are multiple different ones. And yes, they do work very similarly. This is the one where you can actually specify which historical person you want to chat with, whereas other ones are already built in with certain specific historical people. So I had a chat with Frida Kahlo. I had a chat, and there's also subject specific chatbots as well. So I had a really big conversation about filmmaking and directing and cinematography. So sometimes it's not just specific. Not all of them are in English. From what I know, when I first started out with chatting with Frida Kahlo, she started in Spanish. And I had to ask to translate it to English, but I'm not sure how many languages they are coming from and whether or not the resources are coming from specific language resources, as in they're only in that resource, or if they are been translated, or if other pieces are in English and only translated. So I'm not entirely sure. This would be something that maybe you would like to play around with, and also maybe something you want to put in the options for those specifications for those launch spaces as well. Thank you for the question. Okay, are we good? I think we're good. Wonderful. And yes, if you have any other questions, that'd be great to get some emails from you guys. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much for having us.